Oh, it's just a goat.
All right, so let's start with what you actually want to know. I put around 50,000 miles on this bike and it doesn't burn any oil. It still runs as strong and smooth as the day I bought it from the factory, and I've had zero major mechanical issues with the bike. It's been rock solid and reliable. And from what I read on the internet, this is not an uncommon occurrence. These things run 60, 70, even 100,000 miles without any issues all the time. That reliability is one of the things that makes this bike the GOAT and separates it from several of its competitors. There's just not much out there, especially in this price range, that can do everything that this bike can do and just keep doing it year after year after year with very little maintenance. Now, I use this bike for everything. It is my daily driver. I use it as a farm bike. I sometimes use it as a dirt bike. And my favorite thing is I use it as an adventure bike. And I kind of have it built out like an adventure bike, as you can tell here. And it makes a great platform for all of those things. In fact, it does almost everything well. And I've even spent a whole lot of time on the interstate with it. And that is its only real flaw. And I'm going to get into that later in this video. So what about the XR650L? Why isn't it the GOAT? Well, it doesn't come stock with an oil cooler or a cush drive, and the DR650 just has unmatched aftermarket support. Suzuki got a lot of things right when they released this version of the DR650 in 1996, and it's been unchanged ever since, and that's because they got almost everything right. So the first thing they got right was the weight. It's a big bike. Once you put a big aftermarket tank and then maybe get rid of this anchor, I still have mine on there, you're going to be coming in at around 375 wet, around there, which is heavy, but it's also extremely light compared to adventure bikes. But make no mistake, 370 pounds is roughly 100 pounds bigger than a dirt bike, and that is a lot of weight. So for reference, it's like carrying around 2 extra ones of these when you're riding off-road, and that's going to be tiring. But if you're looking at a Tanneray compared to a dirt bike, it's 4 extra ones of these. And that's just pretty much impractical if you're trying to learn to go off-road. Now, I'm a fairly big dude. I'm 6'2", and it kind of feels just like an overgrown dirt bike to me. And I have fun with the weight, and it feels right. But make no mistakes, it's not a dirt bike, it's a dual sport, and it's a compromise because this extra weight helps it on the road and makes it a whole lot smoother. So I think 370 is the perfect compromise as far as the number. I think you could go 20 pounds lighter, and I think you could go about 20 pounds heavier. But if you go any further than that, you're going to be compromising too much as far as the perfect unicorn bike. You're not going to have a bike that can ride off-road and ride smoothly on the road. You actually need that weight to go on the road. At the end of the day, no matter how good the suspension is, you're not going to get around the laws of physics. Next, let's talk about ground clearance on this bike, and it sits around 10 inches. And that gives you plenty of ground clearance to ride this thing over logs and do all kinds of crazy dirt bike type stuff. But it also sits just a little bit lower and makes it ride a little bit better on the street. Make no mistake, it being down a couple inches is a compromise, but I think it is the right compromise, and it's one of the things that makes this bike one of the best bikes of all time. Next, let's talk about power. And the bike produces a little bit north of 40 horsepower. And this is plenty for off-road. It has enough torque to move the earth itself. And it also is plenty of power for the interstate. The bike can run 98-ish miles an hour. The speedometer is a little bit optimistic. But you can be going 80 miles an hour down the interstate, and you still have extra power to pass people there. So you might be asking, well, why isn't this bike a unicorn then? It sounds like it has everything right and everything going for it. Well, let's go through that. It's dirt cheap, it's stone reliable, it has the perfect ground clearance, it has the perfect weight, It has plenty of power. So what's wrong? Well, what's wrong is it is a giant single cylinder engine. So you can go 70 miles an hour down the interstate. You can go 80 miles an hour down the interstate, but you aren't going to be happy. The bike and you are happy at around 65-ish miles an hour. At 70, you start to question things, and at 75, for a period of more than an hour, well, you're not happy, and the mechanical sympathy voice starts to creep up in your head. It can do it. I've done it all the way. I've done it a long time, and it doesn't have any problems long term with the engine, but it's not something that you really want to be doing. Yep, you had top down. So if this bike could run smoothly on the interstate at 75, it would be the perfect bike. But it doesn't, because it is a giant single cylinder engine that wants to eject itself up the ground, and it vibrates. And there's no real way to get around that except, oh, a modern twin engine. And we have these, and they're smooth, but for some reason the manufacturers missed the mark. The Tanneray, it's 100 pounds too heavy. The new Kawasaki the KLE 500, I thought it was going to be the perfect bike, but it has 8 inches of ground clearance and it weighs 400 something pounds. This is not something that we can't design with the modern tools that we have today. We could easily make a bike that makes 44 horsepower, weighs 380 pounds, and has 10 inches of ground clearance. And that would be a bike that is fun to ride off-road. It would be a bike that would be fun for people to learn off-road. It would be a bike that you could ride on the interstate back home and be perfectly comfortable with, because it's not trying to vibrate itself to death. And it'd be extremely reliable and simple with fuel injection. All this stuff is possible, and I don't even care if they made it cheap or expensive. I would be the first person in line, and I think a lot of other people would too. We don't want a 450 pound adventure bike. We want a 380, 390 pound adventure bike. And this is actually really shown in the market too. This is why the KTM 390 is such a huge hit. But the problem with them is the same problem with this bike. They're not happy on the interstate. And if you're gonna go for a ride at some point in time, you're gonna wanna hop on the interstate and make some time. Yes. So this thing is the GOAT because it does everything well. It has all the right specifications, it has all the right power, but it's not a unicorn because it doesn't ride on the interstate like it should. The unicorn would do all of these things, and it doesn't exist yet. Right now we have to pick. Do we want everything but the interstate, or do we want the interstate and most of everything? And right now, I pick everything but the interstate.